Hey y'all, it's me Alex. Today I'm doing a Spiritual Sundays video, my second one ever, and I'm doing it on the subject of communion and community because today is World Communion Sunday. I just made some cornbread to take to church for World Communion Sunday. I did this look using the ColourPop Good Sport palette because I think that goes really well with my outfit. So if you want to hear my rantings about how much I love communion and how good I think it is to be in community, just keep watching. My lighting just feels like very, very off today. I don't know why. I think it's because it's like rainy outside. So today is World Communion Sunday, and so I wanted to do my Spiritual Sunday video on communion and why I like it so much. Because I did go through a period where, like, I didn't particularly enjoy communion. Like, not that I didn't care, but, like, you know, like, this is, like, fine. And then there was also, like, that one time that I went to go see Mother the day before a communion Sunday. So, like, I don't recommend that at all. Don't go see Mother the day before communion. I want to talk about communion. I'm also going to be using my ColourPop Good Sport palette because I think that goes with my outfit very well today. I have a lot of feels about communion because I'm not sure if I necessarily see it as the literal body and blood of Christ. Now, I'm Methodist, and Methodists don't necessarily have to see it as the literal body and blood of Christ in the same way that Catholics and I think a few others do, but Catholics are kind of the main people who believe that, like, that is Christ's literal body and blood that's, like, showing up in there. The biggest thing is, like, in the Last Supper for me in the Bible when Jesus says, do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me, in reference to the wine. That is one of the things that holds the most symbolism for me. Not in the, like, this is my body, this is my blood. We eat and drink a lot. Like, I think generally, at least in American culture, we try and eat 3 meals a day. I know that there are different, like, food sciences behind, like, how much you should eat a day, but, like, that's a lot. And so basically, to me, that's Jesus calling us to remember him and remember his love for us at least 3 times a day. So if we think about, like, blessings before meals and things like that, that to me isn't necessarily saying that the food isn't blessed already, because I think that God has already blessed so much of the world that we don't necessarily need to call upon that, but rather that us blessing our food and things of that nature is a reminder of saying, like, hey, you are so very loved, which is not a reminder that we get very often. And the other portion of communion is, it's there in the word, it's community. Communion is not something that you can do by yourself, like, literally by the nature of the sacrament. You have to do it with, you know, your pastor, with the people helping out at church that day. It is an inherent part of being in, I think, Christian community. I grew up in the South. I grew up in a culture that was very, like, food centric, and I still think that I have some of my best moments with people, like, when we're like, yeah, let's, like, sometimes my friends and I after class will be like, let's go out to the diner and eat some food or something like that, and, like, we'll just end up talking all night long, or, you know, having church picnics or, like, coffee hour, because I think those are absolutely sacraments as well. To me, communion says that being a part of holy community is a sacrament, or just being a part of community, having friends and family and people you rely on, is a sacrament. And I really, really like that, because it means that, to me, a sacrament is something that is holy and needs to be valued. That's kind of how, like, yeah, there are more official definitions for it than that, but I'm not necessarily the kind of person to get into all of that. I just see being in community with people as a sacrament. So communion for me kind of underlies the importance of that. So, like, today for my church, my pastor has asked, like, hey, can, like, a bunch of people volunteer to bring bread from your culture, because we're a pretty multicultural church. So, like, you know, I'm trying to think of, like, naan, challah, just some different kinds of breads from our cultures and stuff. And I think that's also a really cool way of, like, celebrating community. And so it goes deeper than the specific thing you do in church is what I'm trying to say, at least for me. Like I said, when Jesus said, do this as often as you eat, as often as you drink it. Like I said, we eat and drink so much. And if we thought about how much love there is in this world every single time we consumed anything, because, you know, food is, I'm not a huge, moralistic person when it comes to food. I don't think that they're like, I know what diet works best for me, but I don't say like, oh, everybody should do this, everybody should do that. I do think that food is just a form of nourishment, whether it be for the body or for the soul, because I firmly believe that there are lots of foods out there that are like, yeah, it might not be great for the body, but it makes you feel like good spiritually, you know what I mean? Whenever you nourish yourself, know that also you're being nourished by the love of the community in addition to the food that you are putting in your body. I just really like thinking about that because the world can feel like so crappy, but eating food with people, at the very least, it makes me feel better. I don't know about y'all. Like, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but when I was growing up, I grew up in potluck culture, and I think that's just church culture in general, but like practically every other Sunday during the summer, it would be like, there's this one family who had a lake and everybody would be like, hey, everyone come down to the lake, we're gonna have a picnic or whatever. And that was like every other week when the weather was nice and everyone would be like, hey, we're gonna eat some food, we're gonna swim in the lake, we're gonna hang out, maybe sing happy birthday to someone who's having a birthday, things like that, and just being a part of community. It wasn't to do anything, you know, specifically spiritually related, although it was everyone at church. It was just like, hey, we are a community here and we should take active time to spend together. Now, in my current church setting, we had like a small group meeting this last week that I attended, and like we kind of met over like food and drinks, and there's so much importance, I think, in that too, because I feel like people who might not normally talk to each other or might not be able to get to know each other otherwise, I feel like conversation just flows freely a little bit better with food. I might be wrong. I just think that there's so much importance, and so it's so easy for us to say like, oh, it's just food, it's whatever. But I feel like there's so much more to it than that. Like, to me, I almost imagine it kind of like going up to the Taco Bell drive-thru, and every time you go up, they would be like, welcome to Taco Bell, do you know how loved you are? And that's kind of what blessings and communion and things like that for me, because like basically you just go up to the front of the church and you'll be like, hey, can I have some communion? And they'll be like, here, this is for you, you are so loved. Like, not in those words explicitly, it's usually said by people who are more eloquent than that. That's exactly what I feel like it is. And I'm a Methodist, as I've said like 25 billion times in this video. But that means that John Wesley is kind of my homeboy. He's a founder of Methodism. I really enjoy his theology. He's one of the few old white guys doing theology that I kinda stan. You know, if we're gonna get the Gen Z terms into it so I can be hip and cool with the youths. He had said something along the lines of, I'll put the actual quote up on the screen, but he had basically said that communion is so important, but we take it for granted because a lot of us are so afraid of being unworthy. Instead of going too much, we don't go to communion at all. But in my theology that I think of, communion as a form of community and a reminder of how loved we are, that like hits me deep in the feels. So I don't know about y'all, but I spent a lot of my time like in my life just kind of being alone, or like having only one or two close friends, because I really like, you know, I was the not cool kid in school, and so it wasn't really until I hit seminary that I had like a lot of close friends, and for a while I was like really scared that I was gonna mess it up, because like I've only had like maybe one or two close friends all throughout my life, and I didn't want to be, like John Wesley said about communion, I didn't want to be unworthy of having friends, that sometimes I would just end up like isolating myself where everyone else would go and hang out. Just because I was scared of like, oh, what if I mess up? What if I'm weird? What if, you know, everyone in middle school was right and that like I was too weird to have friends? It's that thing about communion, is that we get so scared of being in community that we just simply isolate ourselves instead of realizing that whether we're worthy or not, like, we are so very loved whether we deserve it or not. And I know that Christianity gets a lot of crap for being very like a shame and guiltiness filled religion, and I think it rightfully so gets that, because I don't think we should feel as much guilt as we do in the Christian faith. But I think we shouldn't be so focused on our own worthiness or our own self-worth as to whether or not we spend time in community, whether, you know, that be the specific, like, going up to church for communion or, like, going out to dinner with friends. Like, don't isolate yourself because you don't think you're good enough, but rather, like, take that risk anyway, because one of the conclusions I've kind of come to in my life is, like, you know, I might think that I'm, like, obnoxious on my best of days, but clearly all of these other people who keep inviting me to come hang out and wanting to do things with me, they don't think that of me. Otherwise they wouldn't ask me to hang out, because, like, honestly, in most adult friendships I've encountered, like, we don't really hang out with each other out of obligation. Because, you know, sometimes when you're a kid you're like, oh, I'm hanging out with this person because it's my mom's friend's kid or whatever. But as an adult, you have the freedom to make your own friendships. And, like, wow, that's amazing. We can choose our community, what? We get so focused on, like, thinking that, oh, I'm too weird for these people, I'm not cool enough, whatever. But clearly I think evidence points to, like, if people want to hang out with you and invite you places and want to spend time with you, then I think you're probably doing just fine. Like, it's that same way with communion. Like, if we shouldn't have God's love, then God wouldn't invite us to communion. Like, if we weren't supposed to be reminded of how much Jesus loved us, he wouldn't say, do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. So that's kind of my theology on that. I'm also kind of running out of things to say because I think I said a lot of things really fast. So it is blush time. I'm excited about that. I'm a little scared because this blush is, like, really pigmented. It's like this sleek blush. There we go. It's, like, more subtle now. I just have to be careful. Okay, let me put on my lipstick and I'll be right back. Okay, so this is my finished look. This is my Spiritual Sundays video on communion for World Communion Sunday. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I'm trying to post these Spiritual Sundays videos about every other week or so. Maybe one day if I have enough, like, consistent ideas, I can do it every single Sunday, but, you know, I'll work my way up. So give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more videos from me, spiritual or non-spiritual. We like to have a variety of fun over here. And anyway, I will see you on my next video. Hope you'll have a wonderful day. Bye!